All right, welcome back to Musicians Edition. Today we're looking at number 42 from the Mallets section of your Essential Elements book. Okay, so on number 42, skip to my Lou, you'll notice there's a new rhythm that it's not necessarily new to us, but it's new to us as mallet players, right? We've seen this rhythm in snare drum before, and we understand how to count it. And if you don't, make sure that you check out some of those videos and get comfortable with counting and playing eighth notes on a snare drum before you try to do them on a mallet instrument, okay? The main challenge that eighth notes pose for us on mallets is accuracy, right? Just once the notes start moving more rapidly, it gets a little more difficult to be accurate with them, right? But we just have to take it slow and give our muscles time to adjust to that speed and get used to being really accurate at faster speeds, okay? So if we look at number 42, if we look at number 42, you'll see we start on a D, right? Oh, and of course we look at our key signature first, right? We do that every time. You'll notice there's a B flat and an E flat, right? Make sure you do that before any piece that you start, right? So we start on D, and then we have two eighth note Ds, and then we play eighth notes on B flat, right? D, 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 B flat, B flat, B flat, right? Next measure we have D, D, F, okay? So let's start with that little chunk there, right? The next chunk of music here is similar, or the same rhythm, the same kind of sequence, just on different notes, okay? So let's try the first two measures, D, 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 B flat, B flat, B flat, D, D, F. All right, let's play that much. Ready, and go, and... Okay, so the thing, the thing that's going to be challenging about this is getting two Ds and then two B flats, right? Alternating left, right, as we do that, right? So let's excerpt out just that little chunk, right? The hardest part about that passage. Let's just do that so we can get a few repetitions of that before we put the chunk back together, okay? So I'm going to play D, D, B flat, B flat. Right, and do that as many times as you need until it feels really comfortable to you, right? And then let's put the whole chunk back together, right, from the beginning. Here we go. Ready, and go, and... Right, and give that chunk as many repetitions as you need, right? Now, let's look and see if we can find some repetition in this piece, right? Like we've talked about in other pieces in this book. Let's see if any of the measures are exactly the same. A lot of times we can find some stuff like that. For instance, measure 5, measure 6. Exactly the same as what we just played, right? So once we get measure 1 and 2 down, we already have measure 5 and 6 down, right? So let's keep moving and play measure 3 and 4. You'll notice the rhythm is the same, the notes are different, right? So let's think through the notes here. We have C, 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 A, right? C on the third space, A on the second space. C, 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 A, C, C, and then careful with this top space here. That's an E, but our key signature is going to make it an E flat, right? So when we put that all together, we have C, 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 A, C, C, E flat. All right? Now let's play those two measures. Ready, and go, and... All right, and over the top of measure 3, you'll notice SIM period, right? And that just means to continue to play the same sticking, right? Or similar sticking, right? Use the same sticking from measure 1 and 2 to play measure 3 and 4. All right, so now we've, and we can always go back and excerpt out that CCAA, just like we did the D, D, B flat in measure 1, right? So if you have any issues with that, or if you have any trouble with those eighth notes, play just the eighth notes a few times, and then put the chunk back together, okay? So now let's try the first 4 measures all together. Now that we've kind of worked on those two little chunks there, right? Here we go. 1 and 2 and ready, go. All right, we're going to skip measure 5 and 6 for now because it's the same as 1 and 2 like we talked about a second ago. And let's go on to measure 7. So now we're moving by step, right? We're not there are no skips going on here, right? So we start on C and then we go D, E flat, back to D, back down to C, and then B flat, right? So let's think through that. C, D, E flat, D, C, B flat, B flat. All right, you can think through that a couple times, right? Kind of mentally rehearse it, kind of chart out the shape with your hands on the keyboard, right? And then let's play those last 2 measures. And ready, and go, and... Okay? At the very end, you could play the last 2 notes the way it's written with left and then right, or you could play them both at the same hand. By the time you get to the end of the piece like that, it doesn't usually matter so much which hand you play because there's nothing coming up after it. Okay? So we would, we would play a few repetitions of that until it feels really comfortable. And then we're going to back up and start at measure 5 and play all the way to the end, right? And start stringing these chunks together until we get the whole piece. Okay? So starting at measure 5 and go all the way to the end. 2, ready, and go, and... Okay? And in measure 5, we would use the same sticking as we did in measure 1 and 2, right? Again, that SIM period symbol in measure 3, that applies through measure 5 and 6 as well until you see a different sticking in measure 7. Okay? Now let's back up 2 more measures. So we're starting on measure 3, and we're going to take it all the way to the end from there. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Now the last step is to put the whole thing together, right? And play it all the way from the beginning. Now when you start doing this, when you start playing the whole piece, right, be open to the fact that you might trip over something. And maybe it's something that you didn't have trouble with before when we were breaking things down, right? And that's totally fine. Sometimes when things are in context, they're more difficult, right? So whenever you run into something like that, pause for a second, zoom in on that little spot, give it some repetitions, and then work your way back out to playing the whole piece again, right? Just because you've worked on all the chunks doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to work for you when you put it all together, right? You might need to zoom back in and work that out again before you play the whole piece again, all right? So here we go, all the way through from the very beginning. And 1, and 2, and ready, go. Right? So again, as many repetitions as it takes for each chunk, right, to make it feel really, really comfortable, and then as many repetitions as it takes of the whole piece to make it feel really, really comfortable, right? And then by the time you've gone through all that, through that whole process, put your book away, come back to it tomorrow, and then it'll feel really, really good and really natural, right? So keep practicing that, and I'll see you next time.